Hey, warrior. There comes a moment in every person's life when they look in the mirror and realize they've been drifting, not growing, not building, just existing. Days blur into weeks, months disappear into years, and suddenly we are haunted by the crushing weight of wasted time. The ancient Stoics warned us about this exact trap over 2,000 years ago when Seneca wrote, "You act like mortals in all that you fear and like, immortals in all that you desire." These words cut deeply because they expose a fundamental contradiction in how we live. We fear trivial daily inconveniences, a difficult conversation, a challenging workout, the discomfort of learning something new. Yet we act as if we have infinite tomorrows to pursue our deepest dreams and highest aspirations. We micromanage minor anxieties while macro-procrastinating on the very things that could transform our existence. Time doesn't get stolen from us. It doesn't get snatched away by external forces. It gets willingly surrendered hour by hour, choice by choice, until we wake up one day wondering where our lives went. The Roman philosopher Seneca, who understood the psychology of human delay better than perhaps anyone in history, observed that most people don't live. They merely postpone living. They exist in a perpetual state of preparation, always getting ready to get ready, forever on the verge of beginning. My friend, it is not laziness that destroys most people's potential. It is delay. That seductive whisper that says, tomorrow. Tomorrow you'll get serious about your health. Tomorrow you'll start that business. Tomorrow you'll have that difficult conversation. Tomorrow you'll begin investing in your future. But tomorrow is the most dangerous word in any language because it promises everything while delivering nothing. This pattern of delay is why so many people die with what Oliver Wendell Holmes called their music still in them, their unexpressed potential, their unwritten books, their unbuilt businesses, their unlived dreams. The Stoics lived by a radically different philosophy. They believed in urgency married to presence, in building with systematic intention rather than hoping for spontaneous transformation. They understood that the gap between who you are and who you could become only closes through deliberate, disciplined action taken consistently over time. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, wrote in his private journals, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work as a human being.'" Notice he didn't say, "as an emperor" or "as a ruler." He said, "as a human being," because he understood that our primary job as humans is not to accumulate titles or wealth or recognition. It's to actualize our potential, to become the fullest expression of what we're capable of becoming. Look around you today. Most people have stopped growing spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and financially. They've unconsciously settled into a pattern of comfortable stagnation. They follow routines without purpose, consume without intention, and exist without truly living. They've stopped fighting for their own potential. But this message is not for people who are satisfied with mediocrity. This is for those of you who feel that silent anger burning inside, the righteous anger that says, "I know I am meant for so much more than this." If that fire still burns within you, then it's time to stop negotiating with your own potential and start building the life you know you're capable of living. Today, I'm not here to give you temporary motivation that will fade by next week. I'm here to provide you with a systematic wake-up call based on ancient wisdom that has transformed lives for over 2 millennia. Because here's the brutal truth. If you continue to walk through life in a state of comfortable unconsciousness, trusting in endless tomorrows, blaming external circumstances for your internal choices, waiting for perfect moments that will never come, you will inevitably grow old with a heavy heart full of crushing regrets. And regret, the Stoics knew, is the heaviest burden a human soul can carry. Epictetus, who went from literal slavery to becoming one of history's most influential teachers, asked a question that should haunt every person who has been postponing their own greatness. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? Answer that question with complete honesty. Haven't you waited long enough? From this moment forward, I challenge you to walk with urgency, not anxiety, not panic, not frantic energy, but with the focused urgency of someone who truly understands that time is the one resource you can never replenish. Build your life brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day, because no one else will do this sacred work for you. This is your fight to win, your potential to actualize, your life to build. In this video, I will walk you through 7 powerful Stoic principles that will not just shift your perspective, but force you into real, sustainable growth. These aren't feel-good platitudes or motivational fluff. These are time-tested strategies for human excellence that have been proven in the crucible of real life by some of history's most accomplished individuals. Listen carefully, apply ruthlessly, and your life will never be the same. Before we begin, if you are truly serious about transforming your life, rather than just being entertained by the idea of transformation, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Your engagement tells me you're ready to move from consumption to implementation. If this speaks to your soul, claim it in the comments. No more delay. I build my life now. Number 1. Stop negotiating with your laziness. The first and most crucial step to building a powerful life is deceptively simple, yet profoundly challenging. You must completely stop arguing with your own weakness. You must end the exhausting internal negotiations that happen every single day between the person you are and the person you know you could become. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who ruled the vast Roman Empire while facing plagues, wars, and constant political pressures, wrote in his personal journal, "At dawn, when you are unwilling to rise, have this thought ready: I am rising to the work of a human being." Think about the profound significance of this. The most powerful man in the ancient world, someone who could have indulged every comfort and luxury imaginable, still had to battle that same internal voice that begs for ease, for comfort, for just 5 more minutes of avoiding responsibility. But here's what made Marcus Aurelius extraordinary. Every single morning he declared war on that voice of comfortable mediocrity. He understood that the battle for your life is won or lost in those crucial moments when your discipline meets your desire for ease. That is the exact mindset you must adopt if you want to build something meaningful with your existence, because nothing destroys human potential faster than the habit of negotiating with your own laziness. Consider how often you've engaged in these internal negotiations over the past month. Your alarm rings at the time you deliberately set, and immediately the bargaining begins. Just 5 more minutes. I'll get up earlier tomorrow. I didn't sleep well, so this is different. You plan to exercise, but you convince yourself that you'll start fresh on Monday. You committed to reading or learning something new, but you rationalize that scrolling on your phone is somehow a form of research or staying informed. Each time you surrender to comfort over commitment, something profound and damaging happens. Your self-respect quietly erodes. You begin to lose faith in your own word, even when that word is given to yourself. You start to see yourself as someone who has good intentions but poor follow-through. Someone who means well but can't be counted on to do what they say they'll do, even to themselves. Ancient Stoicism teaches us that discipline isn't about harsh self-punishment or joyless rigidity. It's about honor, the deep honor that comes from knowing you showed up for yourself, even when every fiber of your being wanted to take the easy path. It's about building an unshakable trust with yourself, knowing that when you make a commitment, even a small one, you can be counted on to follow through. The Stoics understood that laziness operates on multiple levels. Physical laziness is obvious. It's the reluctance to move your body, to exercise, to engage in physical work. But there's also mental laziness, which is far more insidious. Mental laziness convinces you that thinking about problems is the same as solving them, that planning is equivalent to executing, that good intentions are sufficient substitutes for concrete actions. Then there's emotional laziness, the tendency to avoid difficult conversations, to postpone dealing with relationship issues, to stay in situations that drain you rather than doing the hard work of change. And finally, there's spiritual laziness, the failure to examine your deeper values, to question whether your daily actions align with your stated beliefs, to do the ongoing work of becoming the kind of person you respect. Here's what you must understand. Laziness is not just a temporary state or a character flaw. It's a mental habit that strengthens every time you indulge it. Like any habit, it becomes more automatic and more powerful through repetition. But the opposite is also true. Discipline is a habit that grows stronger every time you choose effort over ease, action over avoidance, discomfort over immediate gratification. The Stoics believed deeply in what they called voluntary discomfort, the deliberate practice of choosing challenging actions when easier alternatives are available. They would wake up early when they wanted to sleep longer, exercise when their muscles ached, work when their minds craved rest, eat simple foods when luxury was available. This wasn't masochism or self-punishment. This was strategic preparation for life's inevitable challenges. When you regularly push through resistance in small areas, you build the mental muscle to push through resistance in larger areas. When you honor your commitments to yourself in minor matters, you develop the character to honor them in major matters. When you prove to yourself that you can do what you say you'll do, even when you don't feel like it, you become someone who can be trusted with bigger responsibilities and greater opportunities. What are you actually losing by remaining in patterns of laziness? You're losing time, the one resource that once spent can never be recovered. You're losing opportunities because while you're negotiating with your resistance, someone else with less talent but more discipline is taking action and moving ahead. You're losing confidence because every time you break a promise to yourself, you reinforce the identity of someone who can't be counted on to follow through. Most importantly, you're losing your dreams. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, gradually, through the compound effect of small surrenders that accumulate over time. Every day you delay taking action, life continues moving forward. The business you wanted to start gets started by someone else. The skill you wanted to develop gets mastered by someone else. The relationship you wanted to build gets built by someone else. Stoicism demands that you master yourself before life forces you to bow to circumstances beyond your control. The best time to defeat laziness is not when you feel motivated. Motivation is temporary and unreliable. The best time to defeat laziness is right now, in this moment, regardless of how you feel. How do you systematically eliminate laziness from your life using Stoic principles? First, expect resistance, and don't be surprised when your body and mind want ease. This resistance is natural and universal. Even Marcus Aurelius felt it. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people is not the absence of resistance, but the response to resistance. Second, create daily routines and systems that operate independently of your emotional state. Whether you feel energetic or tired, motivated or discouraged, inspired or bored, you execute your commitments. This removes the need to make decisions based on fluctuating feelings and creates automatic momentum in your life. Third, systematically reduce temptations and distractions rather than relying solely on willpower to resist them. If you want to read more, remove the phone from your bedroom. If you want to eat healthier, don't keep junk food in your house. If you want to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before. Make good choices easier and bad choices harder through environmental design. Finally, learn to celebrate the discomfort of effort rather than seeing it as something to be endured. That physical discomfort during exercise is your body adapting and becoming stronger. That mental discomfort while learning something challenging is your brain literally forming new neural pathways. That emotional discomfort during difficult conversations is you developing courage and authenticity. Pain becomes your proof that you are actively becoming someone extraordinary. If you are watching this right now and you recognize yourself in the pattern of negotiating with your own laziness, start by forgiving yourself for past failures. The past is unchangeable, but the future is entirely within your influence. From this moment forward, draw a clear line. The new version of you no longer negotiates with weakness. You rise when the alarm rings, regardless of how much sleep you got. You work even when you're tired, because discipline works when motivation fails. You train even when you're uninspired, because consistency creates capability. You read even when you're bored, because knowledge compounds over time. And day by day, through these small acts of self-discipline, you will feel the transformation. Your mind becomes sharper, your body becomes stronger, your character becomes more reliable, and your life becomes exponentially better, not through luck or external circumstances, but through the systematic application of disciplined choice. The Stoic path is not the easy path, but it is the only path that leads to genuine greatness, authentic self-respect, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you have become the fullest expression of your potential. Comfort is a beautiful prison. Discipline is the key to freedom. The question that will determine the trajectory of your entire life is simple. Will you use that key? Own your growth by typing this below. I refuse to negotiate with laziness. Number 2. Build ruthless clarity about your life. The second fundamental principle for building an extraordinary life addresses one of the most common yet devastating problems plaguing modern society: the epidemic of unclear living. Many people remain perpetually stuck, frustrated, and unfulfilled, not because they lack intelligence, resources, or opportunities, but because they lack something far more basic and essential: crystal clear clarity about what they're actually trying to build with their lives. They drift through their days like ships without anchors, tossed by whatever winds happen to blow their way. They wake up each morning and react to whatever seems urgent rather than proactively pursuing what's truly important. They make decisions based on immediate emotions rather than long-term vision. They say yes to opportunities that don't align with their values and no to challenges that could transform their lives. Seneca, who served as advisor to emperors while building vast wealth and philosophical wisdom, understood this challenge intimately when he wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." This isn't merely a poetic metaphor. It's a practical warning about the futility of action without direction. When you lack clarity about your destination, even the most powerful forces in your favor become meaningless. Even opportunities that could change your life will feel overwhelming or irrelevant because you have no framework for evaluating their significance. To truly start building your life rather than just managing your circumstances, you must become brutally, uncompromisingly clear about what you are actually building. You cannot continue to wake up each day hoping that something magical will happen to you. You cannot keep waiting for external circumstances to provide the direction that only you can determine. You cannot outsource the responsibility of designing your life to other people, to society, to circumstances, or to chance. Stoicism is fundamentally about intentional living, living with conscious purpose rather than unconscious reaction. This requires you to engage with some of the most challenging questions a human being can ask themselves. What kind of person do I want to become over the next 5 years? What specific skills do I want to master and why? What kind of physical health, mental clarity, financial stability, and character strength do I want to possess? What problems do I want to solve in the world? What legacy do I want to leave behind? But here's where most people make a critical error. They approach these questions casually, giving vague, socially acceptable answers that sound good, but provide no real guidance for daily decision-making. They say they want to be successful without defining what success means to them personally. They want to be happy without understanding what actually brings them lasting fulfillment. They want to make a difference without identifying specific problems they feel called to solve. Vagueness is the enemy of achievement. Precision is the foundation of power. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he wasn't creating pretty philosophical statements for public consumption. He was forcing himself to think with razor-sharp clarity about his values, his responsibilities, and his priorities. He understood that a leader who cannot think clearly about his own life cannot possibly lead others effectively. True clarity requires you to sit down with yourself, without distractions, without other people's opinions, without social media, without any of the noise that usually drowns out your authentic voice, and answer the genuinely difficult questions. What do you want to contribute to the world that only you can contribute? What pain or problem do you feel uniquely equipped to address? What lifestyle are you truly willing to sacrifice for, not just dream about? Because here's what separates real clarity from wishful thinking. Clarity is not just about dreams and aspirations. It's about sacrifices and trade-offs. If you want to build something extraordinary, you must also be willing to give up everything that weakens or distracts you from that building process. That might mean distancing yourself from friends who drain your energy. It might mean saying no to social activities that don't align with your priorities. It might mean eliminating habits that consume your time without contributing to your growth. Once you achieve genuine clarity about your direction, your life becomes dramatically simpler and more powerful. Not easier. Clarity doesn't eliminate challenges, but simpler, because you now have clear criteria for making decisions. Does this opportunity move me closer to who I want to become or further away? Does this relationship energize me or drain me? Does this activity contribute to my long-term vision or just consume my short-term attention? When you know exactly where you're going, what doesn't align with that destination gets naturally eliminated. You stop saying yes to things out of guilt, boredom, or social pressure. You start saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. You begin to understand what Seneca meant when he said that true wealth consists not in having many possessions, but in having few wants that align perfectly with your deepest values. Even Marcus Aurelius, despite having access to unlimited power and luxury, constantly reminded himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't morbid thinking, this was clarity thinking. When you truly internalize the reality that your time is limited and precious, you stop wasting it on activities, relationships, and pursuits that don't contribute to your highest good. That reminder of mortality pushes us toward laser-focused clarity. If death is guaranteed and timing is uncertain, then spending your limited days in confusion, distraction, or purposeless activity becomes a profound dishonor to the gift of existence. When you are clear about your values and direction, you move with intention rather than drift with circumstances. You speak with purpose rather than just make noise. You wake up with a compelling reason to engage fully with the day ahead. The practical application of this principle requires you to create what I call a personal manifesto, a written document that captures your core values, your long-term vision, and your non-negotiables. Write down specifically who you must become to achieve the life you truly desire, not the life others expect you to want. Define your absolute non-negotiables, the things you refuse to compromise on, regardless of external pressure or convenience. Perhaps your non-negotiables include your morning routine that sets the tone for your entire day. Maybe they include your commitment to physical fitness as the foundation for mental and emotional strength. They might involve your dedication to continuous learning and skill development, or your insistence on financial discipline and investment in your future self. The specific content matters less than the clarity and commitment with which you define and protect these priorities. Once you build that clarity, your next responsibility is to protect it fiercely, because the world will constantly try to distract you with noise, entertainment, drama, gossip, and other people's emergencies. Social media algorithms are specifically designed to fragment your attention. News cycles are engineered to create artificial urgency about things you cannot control. Consumer culture profits from keeping you confused about what you actually need versus what you think you want. But you are not like most people. You are not casual about your existence. You are becoming a stoic architect of your own destiny. You must guard your focus and clarity like a warrior guards his most precious weapon. When external forces try to pull you off course, your clarity becomes your compass, always pointing you back toward what truly matters. Clarity, when properly developed and fiercely protected, becomes a strategic weapon. With it, you cut through confusion and make decisions quickly and confidently. Without it, you drown in the chaos of endless options and other people's opinions. In a world that profits from your distraction and confusion, maintaining crystal-clear focus on your own path becomes not just a personal advantage, but an act of rebellion against forces that want to keep you small, uncertain, and easily manipulated. When Epictetus was asked why he trained so rigorously in philosophical thinking, he responded, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You become the master of your life, the precise moment you get clear about the life you are determined to build, regardless of what anyone else thinks about your choices. So, look into your future with sharp, uncompromising eyes. Decide with precision who you want to become. Identify with brutal honesty what you need to eliminate from your current life. Then move forward with unshakable clarity about your direction. Even if that means walking alone, even if that means disappointing people who prefer you small and uncertain, even if that means making choices that others cannot understand. Your life is not a democracy. You don't need consensus or approval to pursue your highest vision of what's possible. You just need clarity, commitment, and the courage to act on both. Number 3. Stop waiting for motivation. Create momentum yourself. The third transformative principle that separates those who actually build meaningful lives from those who merely dream about them addresses one of the most pervasive and destructive myths in modern self-development culture. The belief that success belongs to those fortunate few who wake up each day flooded with natural motivation and inspiration. This is not just wrong, it's dangerously misleading. It keeps millions of people trapped in cycles of waiting, hoping, and perpetual preparation while their lives slip away unused. The truth that high achievers understand but rarely articulate is this: genuine success is not powered by constant inspiration or natural motivation. It is powered by systematically created and carefully maintained momentum. The ancient Stoic philosopher Cleanthes, who worked as a night-shift boxer and day laborer to fund his philosophical education, understood this principle when he taught, When the effort required to lift a heavy stone is too great, wedge another beneath and continue. This isn't just practical advice about moving stones, it's a profound metaphor for human achievement. When motivation fails, when inspiration fades, when your emotional energy runs low, you don't stop. You find leverage. You create systems. You build momentum that carries you forward regardless of how you feel. The fundamental error most people make is waiting to feel like doing it before taking action. This approach guarantees mediocrity because feelings are inherently unreliable, fluctuating based on sleep, weather, stress, blood sugar, social interactions, news cycles, and countless other variables completely outside your control. If you allow your emotions to determine your actions, your life will resemble an emotional roller coaster. Periods of intense activity followed by crashes of inactivity, bursts of progress followed by stretches of stagnation. Ancient Stoics operated from a radically different paradigm. They believed that action was more important than emotion, that behavior should drive feeling rather than the other way around. They understood that you don't wait to feel brave before acting courageously. You act courageously until courage becomes your natural response. You don't wait to feel disciplined before behaving with discipline. You behave with discipline until discipline becomes your automatic mode of operation. This principle extends to every area of meaningful achievement. You will not always want to read that book that could transform your understanding. You will not always feel excited about exercising your body when it's tired or sore. You will not always feel inspired to work on developing your craft or skills. You will not always have the emotional energy to resist temptations that you know don't serve your long-term interests. But these moments, when you don't feel like taking positive action, are precisely when action matters most. Every single positive action taken while uninspired, while tired, while discouraged, is a direct strike against your old identity and a building block for your new one. It's proof to yourself that you are becoming someone who can be counted on to follow through regardless of circumstances. It's evidence that your commitment runs deeper than your comfort. The Stoics understood that you don't need to start with massive, life-changing actions. In fact, attempting to do too much too quickly often leads to burnout and abandonment of your goals. A Stoic life is built not through occasional bursts of intense effort, but through consistent, sustainable movement in the right direction over extended periods of time. Want to become physically strong and healthy? Begin with just 10 minutes of movement every single morning, regardless of how you feel. Not 2 hours at the gym when you're motivated, but 10 consistent minutes that you can maintain even on your worst days. Want to master a valuable skill? Commit to just 30 minutes of focused practice daily, even when you're exhausted or uninspired. Want to become financially stronger and more secure? Study your finances, investment options, or income-generating skills for just 15 minutes each day, instead of scrolling mindlessly on your phone. These actions may seem almost trivially small, but that's precisely their power. Small actions maintained consistently generate what mathematicians call compound effects, results that grow exponentially over time rather than linearly. And perhaps more importantly, small, consistent actions generate psychological momentum. Once momentum begins building, motivation naturally follows rather than preceding action. This relationship between action and motivation is crucial to understand because it's the reverse of what most people expect. They wait for motivation to drive action, when in reality, action creates motivation. When you take positive steps forward, even small ones, you begin to see yourself as someone who takes positive steps forward. This identity shift then makes future positive actions more likely and easier to maintain. Remember that emotion is inherently unreliable as a foundation for sustained action. Some days you will feel powerful, energetic, and capable of conquering the world. Other days you will feel empty, tired, discouraged, or overwhelmed. If you allow these natural emotional fluctuations to determine whether you take positive action, your progress will be erratic at best, non-existent at worst. The Stoics believed deeply in what they called steadiness, the ability to maintain consistent forward movement regardless of internal or external circumstances. Marcus Aurelius, who had to maintain his philosophical practice through wars, plagues, family tragedies, and enormous political pressure, wrote extensively about the importance of showing up consistently rather than dramatically. Discipline, from a Stoic perspective, is not about how intensely you can perform when you feel like it. It's about how consistently you can show up when you don't feel like it. It's not about hitting one massive home run when you're inspired. It's about taking one small step forward every single day, regardless of conditions. Just as water carves through solid stone, not through force but through persistence, disciplined daily action carves a new future for you through consistency rather than intensity. This principle has profound implications for how you approach personal change. You may never feel completely ready to start that business, write that book, have that difficult conversation, or make that significant life change. Most people use this feeling of not being ready as justification for delay. But the Stoics remind us that the only perfect time for positive action is now, in this moment, with whatever resources and knowledge you currently possess. Life is unpredictably short and mercilessly unforgiving to those who wait for perfect conditions. While you're researching, planning, and waiting to feel ready, opportunities pass, time expires, and other people with less knowledge but more willingness to act move ahead of you. Stop overthinking your decisions and overplanning your actions. Start acting with the information you have, adjust based on the feedback you receive, and trust that momentum will create the clarity and confidence you're waiting for. Mahatma Gandhi, whose philosophy was deeply influenced by Stoic ideals, observed that action expresses priorities. Your daily actions reveal what you actually value, not your words, intentions, or stated goals. If you truly value your future self, your potential, and your dreams, prove it through your willingness to take action when you don't feel like it. If you truly believe you're capable of more than your current circumstances suggest, demonstrate that belief through daily choices that reflect someone living at that higher level. Set what I call daily minimums, the smallest possible version of important activities that you can maintain even on your most challenging days. These minimums serve as anchors that keep you moving forward when life gets chaotic, when motivation disappears, when circumstances become difficult. Your minimum might be 10 push-ups when you can't get to the gym, 1 page of reading when you can't focus for longer periods, or 5 minutes of meditation when you can't find more time. The goal of these minimums is not to accomplish everything through tiny actions. It's to maintain momentum and identity consistency. When you honor your minimums every day, you prove to yourself that you are someone who follows through on commitments. This proof builds the psychological foundation for larger commitments and bigger actions. Move forward regardless of your emotional state. Let your actions carry you when your feelings fail you. Trust that consistent movement in the right direction will eventually generate the enthusiasm and confidence you're currently waiting for. One day, people will observe your life and comment on how motivated you seem to be, but you will smile knowingly, understanding the truth. It wasn't motivation that created your success. It was momentum, systematically built and carefully maintained, one small action at a time. Number 4. Surround yourself with builders, not dreamers. The The fourth critical principle for building an extraordinary life addresses one of the most underestimated yet powerful forces shaping your destiny, the profound impact of your social environment. The path to building a meaningful, successful life is not meant to be walked with just anyone. You must become ruthlessly selective about the people you allow into your inner circle, because your environment doesn't just influence your choices. It literally shapes who you become at the deepest level. Look closely and honestly at the 5 people you spend the most time with right now. Do they build tangible value in their lives, or do they merely dream and talk about building? Do their daily actions reflect serious commitment to growth, or do they engage in endless planning without execution? Do they challenge you to become better, or do they unconsciously encourage you to remain at their level of comfort and mediocrity? The ancient Stoics understood something that modern psychology has now confirmed through extensive research. You become remarkably similar to the people you consistently spend time with. Epictetus, who transformed himself from a literal slave into one of history's most influential teachers, warned his students, "Avoid fraternizing with negative people, for they increase your likelihood of sinking to their level." This isn't about being judgmental or elitist. It's about recognizing a fundamental truth about human psychology and social influence. Your social circle is either watering your growth and reinforcing your highest aspirations, or it's slowly poisoning your potential and normalizing mediocrity. There is no neutral ground. Every conversation either elevates your thinking or diminishes it. Every social interaction either strengthens your commitment to excellence or weakens your resolve to push beyond comfort. Consider the people around you who claim they want success, improvement, or positive change in their lives. Now observe their actual daily behaviors rather than listening to their stated intentions. Do they wake up early to work on their goals, or do they sleep late and make excuses? Do they invest their free time in learning, creating, or building, or do they spend their evenings gossiping, consuming mindless entertainment, or engaging in activities that contribute nothing to their stated objectives? Many people say they want discipline, but they spend their social time with people who celebrate quitting when things become difficult. They claim they want financial success, but they surround themselves with people who have negative attitudes toward money, success, and achievement. They say they want to grow personally, but they maintain friendships based on shared complaints rather than shared aspirations. If you continue to keep such people close, you will unconsciously begin to accept their standards as normal and reasonable. Soon, being late becomes understandable because everyone in your circle is frequently late. Making excuses becomes realistic because everyone around you makes excuses for their lack of follow-through. Quitting becomes mature and knowing your limits because everyone around you has a story about why they gave up on their dreams. Without even realizing it's happening, your internal fire begins to dim, not because you lost your desire for a better life, but because you're surrounded by people who never had that fire to begin with, or who extinguished theirs years ago and now unconsciously work to extinguish yours as well. Mediocrity loves company, and misery is always recruiting. To truly build your life according to your highest vision, you must strategically and systematically surround yourself with what I call builders. People who consistently take action toward meaningful goals. These are individuals who wake up early not because they have to, but because they want to maximize their day. They exercise regularly not because it's easy, but because they understand the connection between physical discipline and mental strength. They invest in learning and skill development not because it's entertaining, but because they're committed to increasing their value and capability over time. Builders talk less about what they're going to do and spend more time actually doing it. They discuss strategies, share resources, and offer practical help rather than just emotional support for staying comfortable. They push forward with quiet intensity, focusing on results rather than recognition. Most importantly, being around such people naturally forces you to raise your own standards because their consistent excellence makes your excuses feel shameful and your potential feel urgent. This is why Marcus Aurelius, despite being surrounded by people who would agree with anything he said, constantly advised himself to live as on a mountain, elevated above the noise of popular opinion, focused on character development rather than social approval, committed to growth rather than comfort. He understood that even as the most powerful person in his world, he needed to maintain psychological distance from people who might lower his standards or distract him from his philosophical development. The practical application of this principle requires you to make some potentially difficult decisions about your current relationships. You need to gradually distance yourself from people who drain your energy, discourage your ambitions, or normalize behaviors that keep you from reaching your potential. This doesn't mean being cruel or making dramatic announcements about ending friendships. It simply means slowly reducing the time and emotional energy you invest in relationships that don't support your highest good. Simultaneously, you need to begin gravitating toward people, places, and environments where serious individuals gather. Attend different types of events. Join organizations focused on learning, building, or achievement. Spend your time in libraries, gyms, co-working spaces, workshops, or any environment where people are actively working on improving themselves rather than just talking about improvement. Some of you are hesitating because you're afraid that outgrowing your current social circle will leave you alone. Let me be direct. Temporary solitude is infinitely better than permanent mediocrity. The Stoics not only embraced periods of solitude, they considered it essential training for mental strength and character development. In solitude, you confront your weaknesses without the distraction of social dynamics. You develop your own thoughts without the influence of others' opinions. You build the inner strength that makes you worthy of attracting other strong people into your life. You cannot find high-caliber people by maintaining low-caliber habits. You cannot attract builders while you're still operating like a dreamer. The solution is not to search desperately for better people to spend time with. The solution is to become the type of person that better people naturally want to be around. Start building your own life with such consistency and excellence that other builders notice your commitment and want to connect with you. Work on your physical fitness, mental development, financial discipline, and skill acquisition with such seriousness that people who are also serious about these areas are naturally drawn to your energy and focus. Remember this fundamental truth. Genuine builders build regardless of who's watching or applauding. They don't need constant encouragement or social validation to maintain their commitment to excellence. If you want to transform your life and attract other people who are also committed to transformation, you must first become someone who builds consistently, whether anyone notices or not. The quality of your life will ultimately be determined by the quality of the people you choose to walk alongside. Choose people who challenge you to grow rather than comfort you in staying the same. Choose people whose actions inspire you rather than whose words entertain you. Choose people who are building something meaningful rather than people who are just passing time until they die. Number 5. Stop consuming to escape. Start learning to evolve. The fifth transformative principle addresses what may be the most widespread and destructive habit in modern society: mindless consumption as a form of emotional escape. We live in an era of unprecedented access to information, entertainment, and distraction. Yet most people use this access not to grow or evolve, but to avoid the discomfort of confronting their own potential and taking responsibility for their lives. Observe your own patterns honestly. When you scroll through social media for hours, binge-watch entire seasons of television shows, eat emotionally beyond physical hunger, or consume endless streams of news and entertainment, are you genuinely growing as a person, or are you running away from the psychological discomfort that comes with building something meaningful with your existence? The ancient Stoics, living in a world with far fewer distractions, but the same human tendencies toward avoidance, understood that consuming without clear intention is a subtle form of self-destruction. Seneca, who had access to all the luxuries and entertainments that Roman wealth could provide, wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He understood that much of our consumption feeds our imagination, our fears, our anxieties, and our distractions rather than contributing to our wisdom, strength, or practical capability. Most modern consumption is designed to keep you in a state of comfortable numbness, gently avoiding the psychological discomfort that signals growth opportunities. Every hour you spend consuming content that doesn't challenge you, educate you, or inspire you to take positive action is an hour stolen from the active construction of your future self. Think about this mathematically. If you currently spend 2 hours per day in mindless consumption, scrolling, watching, eating, or consuming for emotional regulation rather than genuine value, that's 14 hours per week, roughly 60 hours per month, over 700 hours per year. Now imagine redirecting even half of that time toward reading philosophy, learning practical skills, exercising your body, studying financial literacy, practicing a craft, or developing any capability that compounds over time. In just 1 year, with no other changes to your life, you would invest over 350 hours in your own development. That's equivalent to almost 9 full-time work weeks, dedicated to becoming more capable, knowledgeable, and valuable. Over a decade, this would represent nearly 4,000 hours of deliberate personal development, enough to achieve genuine mastery in multiple areas of life. The Stoics believed that life should be lived deliberately and intentionally, with every choice contributing to your development as a human being. This doesn't mean you must never relax or enjoy simple pleasures. It means that your relaxation should be earned through productive effort, and your consumption should serve a clear purpose rather than simply filling time or avoiding discomfort. Marcus Aurelius, who could have indulged in any entertainment or luxury imaginable, instead wrote in his personal journal, "You become what you give your attention to." This principle is even more crucial today than it was in ancient Rome. If you consistently give your attention to chaos, drama, negativity, or meaningless stimulation, you will become chaotic, dramatic, negative, and addicted to stimulation. If you consistently direct your attention toward wisdom, growth, health, and meaningful challenges, you will become wise, growing, healthy, and comfortable with meaningful difficulty. The shift from consumptive escape to evolutionary learning begins with honest self-assessment. For 1 week, track how you spend your discretionary time, the hours when you're not sleeping, working, or handling basic life maintenance. How much of this time contributes to your long-term growth versus short-term emotional management? Then begin systematically replacing consumptive habits with learning habits. Instead of automatically reaching for your phone when you feel bored or anxious, reach for a book that challenges your thinking. Instead of watching random videos or scrolling through social media, watch educational content that teaches you practical skills. Instead of consuming news that makes you feel informed but powerless, study subjects that increase your actual capability and influence. This doesn't require dramatic lifestyle changes. Start by replacing just 30 minutes of daily mindless consumption with 30 minutes of intentional learning. Read books that expand your understanding of psychology, philosophy, business, health, or any field that interests you. Listen to podcasts or lectures that challenge your assumptions and introduce you to new ideas. Watch videos that teach you practical skills rather than just entertaining you. But here's the crucial distinction. Don't just consume information, apply it. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's tested through practice and integrated into your daily life. Read about fitness and then exercise. Study communication principles and then practice them in your relationships. Learn about financial literacy and then implement better money management strategies. The ultimate transformation happens when consuming becomes a strategic activity rather than an escape mechanism. When your brain begins craving knowledge and growth more than it craves distraction and comfort, you've made the shift from consumer to builder, from victim of circumstances to architect of your own development. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly when he wrote, "Bear in mind that the measure of a man is the worth of the things he cares about." What you choose to consume reveals what you actually care about, regardless of what you say your priorities are. If your consumption patterns reflect someone who cares more about comfort than growth, entertainment than education, distraction than development, then those are your true priorities, and your life will reflect them accordingly. Make a conscious decision today to care about your evolution more than your entertainment. Choose growth over distraction repeatedly until it becomes your natural preference. Invest your attention in content that makes you more capable rather than content that simply makes time pass more pleasantly. Your future self, the person you could become through disciplined, intentional development, is depending on the choices you make right now about how to use your most precious resource, your attention. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I consume wisdom, not distractions. Number 6. Master boredom. That's where greatness is built. The sixth principle for building an extraordinary life addresses one of the most overlooked yet critical factors that separate those who achieve lasting excellence from those who remain perpetually average: the ability to not just tolerate, but actually master boredom. Most people never build anything truly significant in their lives, not because they lack intelligence, resources, or opportunities, but because they cannot handle one fundamental requirement of all meaningful achievement: the extended periods of unglamorous, repetitive, seemingly boring work that excellence demands. In our hyper-stimulated, instant gratification culture, boredom has become something to be avoided at all costs. The moment people feel understimulated, they reflexively reach for their phones, turn on entertainment, seek social interaction, or find any distraction that provides immediate stimulation. This creates a psychological dependency on constant novelty and excitement that makes sustained focus on long-term goals nearly impossible. Marcus Aurelius, who had access to all the stimulation and entertainment that the Roman Empire could provide, instead chose to spend his time in philosophical reflection and character development. He reminded himself daily, "It is not death a man should fear, but never beginning to live." Yet beginning to truly live in the deepest sense often looks remarkably boring to outside observers. Early mornings spent in solitary reflection, hours of repeated practice on fundamental skills, long periods of quiet focus on important but unexciting work. Predictable routines maintained consistently over years. This is where genuine greatness grows, not in moments of inspiration or excitement, but in the still, unseen, slow accumulation of expertise and character that comes from doing what needs to be done when nobody is watching and nothing feels particularly exciting about doing it. Look at any person you genuinely admire for their achievements, skills, or character. Their daily reality, stripped of social media highlights and public recognition, is largely structured, disciplined, and repetitive. They don't chase constant excitement or novelty. They don't need every activity to feel stimulating or entertaining. They understand something that the majority of people never learn. What feels boring today will compound into capabilities so extraordinary that others will eventually call the results destiny or natural talent. The modern world has created an entire population that is psychologically addicted to stimulation. This addiction makes sustained focus on any single activity feel uncomfortable after just a few minutes. It creates what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where you're always somewhat distracted, always seeking the next source of stimulation, never fully present with whatever you're currently doing. This stimulation addiction is devastating to your potential because mastery in any field requires what psychologists call deliberate practice, focused, repetitive work on specific skills over extended periods. It requires you to stay engaged with activities that may feel boring, difficult, or frustrating, long enough for compound effects to create breakthrough results. But here's what most people misunderstand about boredom. It's not your enemy. It's your test. Boredom is life's way of asking whether you have the psychological strength to do what needs to be done, even when it no longer provides immediate gratification. It's testing whether your commitment to your goals runs deeper than your need for entertainment. The ability to work without constant excitement or stimulation separates those who achieve mastery from those who remain dilettantes, forever jumping from one interest to another. When you can continue practicing, learning, building, or improving, even when the activity feels routine or unstimulating, you unlock what may be the most powerful force in human achievement: sustained, focused effort over time. The ancient Stoics not only understood this principle, they deliberately cultivated the ability to find meaning and even satisfaction in what others might consider boring activities. They practiced what they called preferred indifference, learning to value activities based on their contribution to character development and long-term flourishing rather than their immediate entertainment value. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about finding purpose in routine duties, everyday responsibilities, and repetitive tasks. He understood that a person's character is revealed not in moments of crisis or inspiration, but in how they handle the mundane requirements of daily existence. Do you approach boring but important tasks with resentment and resistance, or do you see them as opportunities to build discipline and demonstrate commitment to your values? The practical mastery of boredom begins with changing your relationship with stimulation itself. Instead of expecting constant entertainment and excitement, begin to appreciate the calm focus that comes from sustained attention on meaningful activities. Instead of judging activities based on how entertaining they are, evaluate them based on how much they contribute to your long-term development. First, stop expecting every moment of your life to feel stimulating or exciting. Understand that the feeling of boredom often indicates you're doing something long enough and consistently enough for it to actually matter. If you're constantly seeking new activities because your current ones feel boring, you may be avoiding the depth that creates real capability. Second, design daily routines that you follow regardless of how stimulating they feel. Your morning routine, exercise routine, learning routine, and work routine should operate independently of your emotional state or desire for novelty. The goal is not to make these routines exciting. The goal is to make them automatic and reliable. Third, learn to track your progress rather than your entertainment level. When you can see objective improvement in your skills, knowledge, physical capability, or character over time, the lack of moment-to-moment excitement becomes irrelevant. You're motivated by growth rather than stimulation. Fourth, practice what I call deep presence during routine activities. Instead of trying to make boring tasks more exciting, practice bringing your full attention to them. When you wash dishes, fully wash dishes. When you exercise, be completely present with the physical sensations. When you read, engage completely with the ideas rather than skimming for interesting highlights. Finally, remind yourself regularly that your ability to handle boredom is a competitive advantage in a world full of people who cannot sustain focus on anything that doesn't provide immediate gratification. While others are constantly seeking the next source of excitement, you're building capabilities that compound over time. The most successful people in any field have learned to find deep satisfaction in the process of improvement itself, regardless of external recognition or excitement. They understand that mastery is not a destination you arrive at during a moment of inspiration. It's a lifestyle you maintain through countless hours of focused practice, when nobody is applauding and nothing feels particularly thrilling. When you develop the ability to work without needing excitement, you become psychologically unstoppable. You'll read when reading feels like work. You'll train when training feels repetitive. You'll build when building feels slow and unglamorous. You'll learn when learning requires sustained mental effort without immediate payoffs. And years later, when your results become so extraordinary that others assume you must have some natural talent or secret advantage, you'll understand the truth. It wasn't genetics or luck or connections. It was your willingness to embrace boredom as the price of excellence, to find meaning in mundane consistency, to build greatness through the accumulation of unremarkable days filled with remarkable commitment. The path to mastery is paved with boredom. The question is, are you strong enough to walk it? Speak this truth into your life. Comment it now. I embrace boredom to build greatness. Number 7. Act as if failure isn't an option, because regret is worse. The seventh and final principle that transforms ordinary people into extraordinary builders of their own destiny addresses the fundamental choice that determines whether you'll live a life of bold achievement or quiet regret. How you frame your relationship with failure and the possibility of not succeeding. Every person who has ever built something truly meaningful with their existence has operated from one non-negotiable mindset. They treated their most important missions as if failure was not an option. This doesn't mean they believed they would never encounter setbacks, obstacles, or temporary defeats. It means they decided from the beginning that ultimately giving up, permanently quitting, or accepting defeat as final was simply off the table as a possibility. Seneca, who survived political exile, enormous financial losses, and eventually faced execution by the emperor he once advised, understood this principle when he declared, "It is not that we are given a short life, but we make it short by wasting it." When you waste your limited time and energy fearing failure instead of pursuing your highest possibilities, you don't just risk failing. You guarantee living a smaller life than you're capable of living. This principle forces you to confront an uncomfortable truth. You're going to experience pain regardless of the choices you make. The question is not whether you'll suffer. The question is whether you'll suffer from the pain of discipline and growth, or from the pain of regret and unrealized potential. Both are difficult, but only one leads somewhere meaningful. Most people approach their goals and dreams with what I call casual commitment. They try things. They hope for positive outcomes. They give themselves psychological escape routes and backup plans that actually undermine their primary efforts. They enter challenges, already preparing themselves mentally for the possibility of quitting when things become uncomfortable or difficult. But the Stoic builder operates from a completely different paradigm: total commitment. When they decide something truly matters, whether it's their health, their relationships, their financial security, their skill development, or their contribution to the world, they psychologically burn their ships. They eliminate the option to retreat back to comfortable mediocrity. This creates a mental state where resourcefulness, creativity, and persistence become not just desirable qualities, but absolute necessities. When you remove the option to quit permanently, your mind is forced to become incredibly resourceful in finding ways to continue moving forward despite obstacles. When you decide that ultimate failure is simply not acceptable, your heart develops the kind of resilience that can weather temporary setbacks without losing long-term vision. When you commit fully to a meaningful outcome, your entire being aligns behind that commitment in ways that casual effort never achieves. This is not about toxic positivity or pretending that failure is impossible. It's about strategic psychology, choosing beliefs and mental frameworks that maximize your chances of ultimate success while minimizing your chances of premature surrender. It's about understanding that how you think about failure significantly influences how you respond to setbacks when they inevitably occur. Ask yourself this crucial question: what frightens you more, the possibility of failing at something important, or the certainty of living with regret about things you never seriously attempted? For most people, when they honestly examine these two options, the answer becomes clear. Failure, even spectacular failure, is temporary and often educational. Regret is permanent and purely destructive. Failure can teach you valuable lessons about strategy, timing, preparation, or approach. Failure can build character, resilience, and wisdom. Failure can redirect you toward better opportunities that you wouldn't have discovered otherwise. Failure can motivate you to develop skills and capabilities you wouldn't have needed if everything had been easy. Regret, by contrast, teaches you nothing except how it feels to avoid taking the risks that could have transformed your life. Regret builds nothing except a growing sense of what might have been if you had been braver, more committed, more willing to endure temporary discomfort for long-term gain. The Stoics trained themselves to confront fear logically rather than emotionally. They would systematically examine their concerns by asking, what is the worst realistic outcome if I pursue this goal aggressively and don't achieve it? What is the worst realistic outcome if I don't pursue it seriously and spend years wondering what could have been? Often this analysis reveals that staying in safe, comfortable mediocrity carries far more long-term risk than bold action toward meaningful goals. Life punishes the timid far more brutally and persistently than it punishes the bold. The timid suffer daily from the slow erosion of self-respect that comes from knowing they're not living up to their potential. The bold suffer temporarily from setbacks that ultimately contribute to their strength and wisdom. Start treating your most important dreams and goals like life and death missions. Want to start a business that could provide financial freedom and meaningful work? Go all in with your research, planning, networking, and execution. Don't dabble. Don't see what happens. Commit fully and adjust your approach based on results, but never adjust your commitment to the ultimate outcome. Want to transform your physical health and fitness? Train and eat like your life literally depends on it, because in many ways, it does. Your energy, confidence, longevity, and overall quality of life are directly connected to the health choices you make consistently over time. Want to develop skills that could change your career trajectory and earning potential? Study and practice like your future financial security depends on your willingness to master these capabilities, because it probably does. This level of commitment doesn't guarantee that you'll never face setbacks or temporary failures, but it does guarantee that you won't quit prematurely, that you'll persist through difficulties that stop most people, and that you'll extract maximum learning and growth from every experience, whether immediately successful or not. Marcus Aurelius understood this when he wrote about treating obstacles as fuel for further action. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He didn't see failure as the opposite of success. He saw it as raw material for building greater success. Can you still experience setbacks, defeats, and temporary failures even with total commitment? Absolutely. But a true Stoic doesn't collapse psychologically from failure. They recalibrate, they adapt, they learn, they grow stronger, and they continue moving toward their objectives with renewed wisdom and capability. The only true failure, from a Stoic perspective, is to abandon your mission entirely because temporary obstacles convinced you that your goals weren't worth the effort required to achieve them. Everyone else is simply being educated by experience and shaped by challenges into someone more capable of ultimate success. When your life nears its end, may you be able to say with complete honesty, "I gave everything I had to the things that mattered most to me. I held nothing back out of fear. I took the risks that aligned with my values and pursued the goals that reflected my highest vision of what was possible." Even if you didn't achieve every specific outcome you desired, you will have succeeded in the most important way possible. You will have lived fully, boldly, and without the crushing weight of wondering, what if? If you have reached this point, understand, you are not like most people. You are not casual. You are not asleep. You are awake to the harsh truth that time is moving, whether you are building or not. The Stoics never begged for an easy life. They demanded strength from themselves. They lived by the simple law: do not spend your life playing the role of a victim. Spend it becoming the architect of your destiny. Your future does not need more promises. It needs your action. The 7 principles you've heard today are not motivation. They are tools. Use them daily. Build your life with discipline, clarity, momentum, powerful environments, intentional consumption, boredom mastery, and fearless commitment. If you do this consistently, you will shock yourself with who you become. If you delay again, life will pass, and no one can give you that time back. Stop bargaining with weakness. Stop begging for comfort. It is time to stand tall, breathe deeply, and act